Thank you to ENTWINED and to Kai for having us here to discuss the work process behind Commonstro by Milo Slayers, which premiered last night here at Kai Studios. With the four performers, they're sitting next to me, Smila, Anastasia, Chiheb, and Kim. So we're going to have a conversation that will try to open up a bit the work, but not in terms of how to read it or the interpretation of it, but in terms of the process that the performers traversed together during actually 1 year. And I will try to make a little introduction of how this work came about. And I want to also point out that Milo is not part of the conversation and is a bit of an audience of this conversation in order to give really the floor and the voice to the performers to express how they enter this practice. And so for those of you who also don't know the background of this project, Commonstro came out of a workshop at Parts, where the four then students and now professionals chose to work with Milo on the transmission of the research questions of his first solo called Mostrare, Monere, which premiered in 2021, sorry, 2022. It was in this same studio, in Kai Studios. It was shown here, and it is also my first work experience with Milo back then in December 22, when he invited me to actually rethink the dramaturgy of the piece, which has already premiered, but he continued to think through it and to basically develop it further. So this was our first work together, and I found it also very nice and interesting that now Commonstro is happening in the exact same space. And just a little maybe explanation. Mostrare is a triptych, so as a structure, where one performer, in this case the choreographer, Milo, is going through a series of bodily transformations related to different monsters. And I think maybe not many people know this, but this work came out of also out of school, out of Isaac, and it was his graduate piece. And he made a book in Dutch and French and a website, monstraremonere.com. You can go there, and all of the research behind and all of the references are on that website. So we're not going to touch very much in this conversation into what kind of monsters were there, so you can do that by yourself. Et voilà. So the workshop in parts departs from this solo from Mostrare. And when I was thinking about the structure of this conversation, I identified 3 different tensions that I feel exist in the work. And I would like to structure the conversation around these 3. And the first one is the fact that you're working with a solo material, but you work collectively. And so basically you will constantly have to negotiate between being alone and also being in the group. The other tension is the somatic practice. You are invited to enter something that is really deep and that is happening internally in the body versus the choreography. So there is actually a writing, a choreographic writing, that maybe interrupts that internal process. What is the third one? And the third one, of course, is the transmission, which is this process of you enter a work that already existed versus something that I would call research, or the fact that you don't learn a score, but you go through continuous research together. After this very long introduction, I would like to ask you What was mm, the biggest challenge in going through this process for each of you? Uh,
I can. Hello, thank you for your introduction. Um, there was not one challenge, I think it was like many challenges, but at different scales. But I would say that the first challenge that I encountered was really this tension between the um, what Milo calls the individual partition, so the score you have through the piece, and the fact that it is coexisting with three other partitions in the space. So what was hard is to carry your partition, to trust that you can go through it, but that it's also cohabitating with other stories in the same time, and how to find the balance between giving yourself the space to do your partition, but also to sometimes be like, okay, now it's a matter of listening, and the other also have the space to speak. And in the beginning, I felt like we were really struggling, and we had this like hyper listening, but so then everybody was listening, but nobody was moving or doing anything. So this was a bit like, yeah, the challenge.
Yeah, thank you also from me. And for me, I think the biggest challenge, you also partly mentioned it already, was this like research that is into an improvisational practice, but trying to make a production, like a piece out of it, to be able to present on stage, and being free enough to, like, in the research, in the rehearsals, let yourself or let the body take over in improvisations, but to be not free enough in having the capability to recreate it again, like the next time we rehearse.
I think very similar. Uh, for me, it was the being in between, feeling full of what you are doing by knowing what you are doing, because it's a partition. So I know where am I, I'm listening, and at the same time questioning totally this, and going in a unknown of my body is taking me, I'm transforming to something that I don't know. So now I'm transitioning, like being on this knowing and not knowing, without having a personality crisis, for example, or a history crisis of who you are, who are you becoming. Sometimes was very difficult. Like letting yourself holding and not holding. Yes. Sometimes it was very playful, sometimes it was very heavy.
Thank you. I think for me the biggest challenge for me, it was like the project itself, because like to start the project you should reveal yourself from inside, and this was like so intense for me. How can I show something I already protect to people to not show? So it was like very like hard for me to open the book, to discover and let the people discover me. So this was like the biggest challenge with the dancers with me and the choreographer and everybody around me. And also like the moment we go through, the moment we find how much the simplicity, it's very hard to have it. So it was like very like the thing that you don't know, it's hard. You think it's easy, it's hard, and hard is easy, and yeah. It was like a loop of uh, explosions and surprises that you never know. You need to do it. So this was what I had.
just picking up on this thing that you feel that what we call partition, which is the French word, or maybe score in English, reveals a lot of what is inside you, or what is hidden, or what you don't feel comfortable to reveal. Why do you think that is really for you, this question? Or I could also say, how is that maybe different to, have you felt like this in another process, like in a more choreographic work where you are performing? Or there you feel more protected?
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, because you said that in this work you felt that you feel a bit vulnerable or exposed or fragile, and I'm just wondering what makes, do you know, can you name what makes you feel like this in that particular score? And have you felt it in, like, basically in your education, for example, where you also went through different transmission processes, though probably very different?
Yes, I think there is two things I had through my life. That is, like, I came from Arab country, from Tunisia. We had another culture, another backgrounds. Man is man and woman are woman, and it's very like I get educated to be very like introvert in my emotions and be like a strong independent man as what capitalism want me to have. So it was like very hard for me because I try to not have it as a dancer, but also it's still existing if you find yourself living in that country for 22 years and nobody support what against the society. And after that, when I found myself in the project, I found that this is not the work that we need to go through. So I need to find my way. I need to expose for me, but not expose for people that they don't look at it as something very hard to go through. And it was like very like sensitive to find it. And also like the second thing I found it is like I worked with people before with pieces with other choreographers. They don't care outside the stage. If you are not in the stage, it's okay. It's you and the work finished. But here no. Here you should be as a family also outside. So it was like kind of like you should care and you should be very as a family outside. Even if you're not dancing, we should be together. So this is the work also that far. Like we went very far, that far for it, and it was hard for me to reach it.
I'll go back to that about actually the dynamics in the group and how that came about. But first, I want to continue a bit on this: why the score makes us feel fragile. Though actually, if you look at it, for most of the in Monstrare, Milo's face is like hidden throughout the whole piece, and in this one, for the most of the piece, also the face is not visible, and there is this basically resistance to being captured, resistance to being seen, and from time to time looking back at the audience, but on your own terms, which is a sort of also power to reclaim the gaze, let's say. But I want to maybe ask Kim, because you mentioned that there was a lot of listening in the practice, that at one point you were not moving and you were only listening to each other. And I just wonder, is that where the slowness came from? Because even me as a dramaturg, coming back and forth in the process and missing some days of rehearsal and then coming back and seeing a totally new version, I was surprised when the slowness came and became such a big thing in the piece. So where did that come from? Can you go back to it? Yeah.
I think at first the slowness came from the beginning of the process. I think it was brought by Milo actually, because of this somatic practice that we would start a session by just having the hand on the wall, and and really like getting deep into, I don't know if I can say the word, or but okay, we start by I touch, I lean on. I don't know, maybe it's copyright. I touch, I lean on, I push, and from these qualities of touching, this is where then we develop the whole work. So it was slow because it had to be slow to really get deep inside of it. But then it was hard to get out of this slowness, because I think it was also very comfortable for us to enter, because we thought that the only way to get into the matter was actually through the slowness, I think.
But at the same time, because there was midway through this process, or like on the sort of frontier border between the school element of it when it was first presented, and then going through the professional element of it, it completely shifted and changed. So actually the one that you presented at parts was not slow. And maybe now I can ask Anastasia and Smila to just maybe, can you walk us through the, because in the team you're joking a little bit that you have 3 performances actually, and the audience will only see one, but actually throughout this 1 year you developed 3 different things. Can you guide us a bit to tell us how did that happen, or like, and why, and what were these 3 different scores?
Yeah, so the first score was developed the first time we met Milo, and like Kim explained, it started with 1 week of touching the wall, and we were not sure what we signed up for, but then after 3 weeks we had quite an amazing work in progress that we like as a group were surprised and very enthusiastic about, and also Milo and you as a dramaturg, you saw it for the first time back then, and the production team, so we were like, okay, this is beyond like school stuff, we should continue this. So we met again in April this year to have a little come together, and then we had a residency in Tor, which was like very exhausting physically and emotional, I would say, because yeah, it was kind of like we wanted to have this production, but also there was still a lot of research to do. Yeah, and we changed a lot and tried to approach the work from a lot of different corners. So back then we had a new piece again. And yeah, then now the final version for now is what we what we presented yesterday and will also today. But somehow with this work, it's like we all change all the time. Like 3 of us graduated. They have their bachelor. Me not. I still have 1 more year to go. But yeah, it's time has passed, and we also like to use this. Metaphor of fermentation that our bodies change, so the piece also changes, and then it's again the thing of like the inside comes out in this piece, so of course it will never be the same. The next time we meet it will also change, and yeah, that's somehow part of the game, like to accept it and to enjoy, to discover. I think it's really exciting.
So basically, I find it interesting that this transmission of the first work was not going through a transmission of the structure of the work or the choreography, but it went into some sort of quality of movement and relation. That was this relation with the wall basically was the starting point to enter the matter of Monstrare, and then to create new material based on the same sensibility, let's say. And I find it fascinating how you arrived at the end, even without, because I don't think any of you has seen Monstrare live or even on video. Have you seen it on video? A bit.
So like 10 minutes, like very short.
So not a full thing, but at the end there's so much of the material from that work that appeared, but it did not appear through trying to copy it, but it appeared through like a totally other labyrinthian way of going through inside and going through many different versions. Yeah, so I find this as a transmission process very, very interesting. And maybe just to say something that I observed as a dramaturg, and I didn't, it was not planned, is that so this transmission started in parts. You were given this working methodology, let's say, and you were working together, you developed something, and then later on during this residency that you were speaking about at STOR, then Milo took back what you had created as solos and then put them back in a way to through his own body, and then send them back once again back to you, and then you would change what he has changed based on what you have changed. So it was like this basically dialogue back and forth, which also I find quite strange and fascinating and discovered in the process. So it was not something that was pre-planned. But to go back to this, also several of you said that it was a challenge, this somatic versus choreography or production. And maybe I'll ask you, Anastasia, how do you or maybe let's put it like this. Did you have a moment where through this surrendering to this process, something happened from the body that was unexpected for you? That you arrived to do something that actually was not your intention?
Yeah, maybe first I wanted to say that the word somatic actually appeared on after we had our first meeting, let's say after the 3 weeks that we worked together. So in the beginning, and I think how I felt working with Milo, it was more like working upon a mystery, like working upon not knowing where we are exactly, and that it's not the knowing that will take you somewhere. So the somatic of how to approach the body, it came much later, basically. And maybe actually the somatic itself was the answer to your question, like the revelation, in a sense that we were talking about the body and then naming somatic, so going back to your own flesh and having something from there as a content to play with or to touch yourself in a visceral way, and that this is an experience that you are all the time in a constant questioning. That was the game. I don't know. That was what I found as that what I have and where we are. I don't know if I answered your question.
I think so.
Actually.
I'm wondering then from this, let's say, practice of being inside and listening and following what is happening, how do you go to this collective body and listening? Because there's in the score, this is happening. You start as a solo, and we see in Monstrare it was one body that kind of transforms into numerous different monsters, and in Commonstro it's like 4 bodies, but they seem like they are one body. They move and they act as if they are part of the one and the same body, and you can't really tell like where this movement is coming from, or where the agency is coming from, and eventually towards the end of the piece you literally become one body physically. So was that another practice, the collective body versus the relation with the wall, or the relation with what you call somatic and the internal listening?
I can go with.
It's to anyone who wants to answer.
Like very practically speaking, this came up from applying the principles to each other's body, basically. Like, so Kim was mentioning the touch, the leans, the flair. Then it was doing it to each other. But for me, it was also an inner wish to touch each other and to merge with each other. And maybe this is how it worked also, like by doing it, it was a bit like, okay, accomplishing this, going closer wish that I have as a person.
It's again for everyone. Do you think that could have happened in the beginning of the process, or is it something that happened through you, as Chihab said, becoming closer and closer with each other? And if yes, how did that happen? And and why was it what Chihab mentioned, that it was not just doing the movements in the studio? Why was it important to work on your communication, basically, as a group?
Actually, this is one of the challenge. This question of the touch, it was a big conversation in the beginning of the process. Like now it seems very far because now we are literally entangled between each other. But to get there, it was a lot of work. Yes, like because there was this whole thing of like, how do I touch someone and what does it mean to actually touch each other, and that even if maybe you come with a certain intention, this intention can be understood in a different way, and also having a male body versus a female one, and all the connotation ideas that you can have through just one touch on a nipple or something it can be big, but I feel like on one side there is like the whole communication that we had between us, explaining how we felt, where does it work, where it doesn't, and also just the complicity that we got through the work. So this helped, but I feel like there is also just the practice that in a way is also protecting us, because we know from where the touch comes from, and that now I don't have any problem of like being touched anywhere, because I know that it's from the work in a way.
Yes, to continue after what you said, somehow the key to this collective body, and it's a paradox, was to get like more clear with your own body, to really be honest with the practice, and to don't have doubts while we're in it, like to be fully engaged with every cell. So there's just like all have the same idea of what is happening. So yeah, that everybody is in this metamorphosis and in this transition to something else, and then we felt supported from each other in this.
And how, because this is so much actually, it's like you go on a very individual and complex process that is internal, and that requires a lot of work, but at the same time, as you say, you deal with all these questions that are around, and that are social and political questions also, and at the same time you were moving or transitioning from or three of you here, because you're still in education, but from education to professional context. And I just wonder, it's a big question, but what was that process for you to, or what changed also in the way you worked? From half of this time you worked in basically as a workshop that's part of education, and suddenly you continue with the same practice but as professionals, and I'm very curious how that felt and what did it change, or
I mean, from the beginning, it wasn't as a workshop. We start as a like, really we going through something, so we felt that it's not needed to stop as a workshop. We felt we want to do it more, and there is this question of how can we go through education and workshop to be more professional and to work on it so hard. So we had the intensity to go for it, even if it's workshop.
because that's something we didn't say also, that in a way, maybe you mentioned it, Smila, that in a way it came from you, this desire to go on and to turn this into performance, right? It did come from the group somehow, with a collective desire. Or I'm wrong?
No, I think yes. I think it was like a common feeling, also from Milo, and actually also from parts like the teachers and tutors that supported it. Yeah.
Because you asked how it's like this professional layer, how it changed through the process and how it came. For me, it was mostly how do we behave to one another, or how we get connected with someone as that takes the role of a choreographer. What does it mean to have someone creating something and you are inside of a project? How do we want this relationship to be established? How Milo took this role, for me that was a very big connection moment, or a nice, a beautiful, a matching way of how I want to imagine that I want to connect with people and create stuff without, because this way of the word professional, it's also a weird word for me. Like, I don't know, it becomes very profit related. So mostly for me it came of how I want to connect with people. What does it mean to create? What roles do we take on this? And for me it became more a personal relationship and a way to, like, an agreement all together that we are digging on something, that everybody has a personal question, a personal interest, and we are all in the same we are in a page that we agreed to go deep on this, and you bring your shit, you bring your no shit, you bring your nothingness today, but every day you should bring something. That was made it professional for me, basically.
I started with the individual challenges, but what was the crisis moment for the group as a group, and how did you overcome it? Or maybe it's more than one, and it's also maybe a moment to mention that there was a fifth person who decided to quit the project for personal reasons, I think, Guilhem, but who was with you through a big chunk of this process as well. What was a moment where the group felt like, this is falling apart, or this is not working, or we don't know how to go on, and how did you overcome it together? Because from what I've seen of the process and what I hear from you now, it's a lot of the work was actually also outside of the stage.
I mean, I was now thinking about the pressure of time, like, because again, this fermentation, and it takes time. We are changing, everything is changing all the time, and because it's not only a show, it's a practice. Like, I don't know, we could spend I feel like months in residency of researching. I don't know how good it would be, or if it would be better, I don't know, but it's just like the thing when we realized, okay, we actually have a deadline. It's not only for us anymore, it's like going somewhere. And for me it was this moment of time pressure, that we were all a bit affected and didn't know where it would be going. And then with also this thing of Guillaume, this one person, where we were not sure if he's continuing or not, which also then plays into like, how can we arrange more time, and me being in Germany, like also not being available all the time, and everybody doing their graduation. I think this was a bit of a hard time.
I think for me it also relates to this thing of like the more professional aspect of the project, but this thing that we are still learning, I think, together. But because what happens on the stage is actually also a kind of image of what is happening outside, which can be also very confronting, because as Shihab said, like the practice, the partition is like revealing something from you. And before I was talking about this thing of like the over listening that we have when we are on the plateau, but actually also in the way we communicate together, even in the rehearsal, it's also like this. So now we are trained, so we answer the question fast to Yasen, but also during the work, like we had and we have to learn how to also like sometimes go for it, or take the lead, or initiate. And I think, I don't know if it's something about like being a student before and maybe not feeling legitimate, or but
For me, I think the most crisis between me and me is just Milo itself, because like as a choreographer, he's like very rare one to work with. You cannot find somebody like him to, I don't know, like if I work with somebody else, you'll have certain like phrases. You say, okay, do this one, repeat it 5 times, you have it, let's go now to do, I don't know, costume slide, blah blah blah. But with Milo, no, with Milo you need to find yourself in a dark cave, and you need to somehow try to light up. You need to have like a light to see the cave, but there is no light because you need to feel it from your inside. And this is the thing, like it comes from, you need to find your monster, but you don't know what's monster is. It's very like, wow. But also like it's very good to work with somebody like him, because it's very rare person to find this way of quality in some pieces. Yeah. But many times I go to him, say like, what do you want from me? Literally, I remember like I went to him, I said 5 times, what do you want from me? Tell me, I want to understand myself. I had like problems when I sleep. Sometimes when I try to sleep, I remember like, do I sleep like this? Because if I sleep like this, I can understand what he said before or what. Like, it was like very wow. But now I'm happy to work with him. Yeah.
But I follow up on. Thank you, Jihab. This is a really good explanation, actually, of the way Milo invites you to enter a practice, and I agree with it. No, I'm picking up on something Kim said also, that actually what's happening on the stage is a reflection of what's happening outside. So basically, there's something very relational about the work. So the level of your connectedness and the level of your communication as a team is really an integral part of the choreography or of the stage presence that we see. So in a way, if if there's a conflict there, or if there is something that is unresolved, basically it will appear in the choreography. That's what, in a way, you are saying, that you can't do. You can't just enter and do the movements and expect it to be enough.
Yeah, also because what is hard is that there is no, I mean, now there is a kind of structure that okay, we go from this to this, but you don't have movement to rely on. Like, you don't have a, no, now I lie. Because we do have, but not as like the kind of performance I was used to do. Because here it's really also about your state, but also the collective state that we have. So then you cannot just be like, okay, I do what I have to do, but you need to really like be in the moment. It's very cliché.
Maybe to explain, until now, there were kind of umbrella, cloud, tasks, moods, situations to be in, and to like before we end up with the structure that we have right now. And so you were doing research and structure and questioning your transformation, that transformation is something in question by its nature. So you were working like that all the time. So yes, you didn't have specific movement to rely upon. And so the way that you were enter on this, and how we start thinking about how we are inside, it was by how we feel to one another, in a sense. Like you were kind of also like, but we also kind of by having the Milo's invitation, or by kind of giving a lot of time to talk about nothing or whatever and everything at the same time, it came to understand that, okay, there are some links between how I feel in general with how I was on that moment, because of like layers of your unconscious behaviors, which was very, it was very rare to have the time to go on this in a process of creating a piece with, and yes, like, and that's why it was, you were exiting the rehearsal and like, what happened now to me, to everybody. And that's why sometimes maybe it was also very difficult to, as a process, like, what are we cooking? Do we know what are we cooking right now? Like, yes, basically. Ending with this phrase all the time.
Is it, now that I'm listening to you, can you maybe explain a little bit, when you were working with these states, we could call it states, but without a structure, was it that in a way this structure was emerging or coming to the surface from the practice that you were doing? Or was it Milo stepping in and then saying, oh, actually, we're going to change this and we're going to, or was it both? Or how the two coexisted?
But I think that was also one of the struggles that we were having, and not having the piece and the structure and the practice and the question in question at the same time. So that's why for me it was like a spiraling mystery, the way of working, like having and not having all of them at the same time. So it was both, and yes and no. Like you had the structure, but you didn't had it sometimes, or you had the practice, but you didn't had it. Yeah, you could question at the same time both.
Okay, I will then reformulate a bit also this question, in the sense, if now you have to transmit this practice, would you feel capable and secure to guide other people to enter into it?
I think I can go through what Smila said about time, because this work it's very fragile and strong in sense that we cannot reach a level of to transmit something easily to somebody else or even to ourselves. And I feel that even because like we don't have the full piece yet, every time we change it, and I agree about why we are changing, because like it's very like hard to have something very fragile from the performance and the choreographer. So it's very like hard with the time to transmit even more time.
Would you be able to give a Commonstro workshop?
No comments.
I think I think I would have some ways, but also it would require enormous patience. I think Milo had this with us because it will not go the way we learned it or the way I want it to go, because like everybody is just different, has a different connection from the in and the out together. So I mean, I think we have some exercises that we also do for warm-ups or like to enter the practice. But yeah, what would come out if we would transmit it would be again something else.
And I don't know if that is a good question, because your premiere was how many hours ago? It's yesterday night. So maybe you haven't processed it yet, but did it feel different to do this very fragile, vulnerable, internal, intimate, collective, individual process in front of so many people? It was a sold-out night, and the piece has no music. You are quite exposed with the light there. So how did it feel? Was it different from the closed research laboratory phase that you were in for so long? Or was it you were maybe super comfortable with this and didn't change anything? I don't know.
Somehow it felt logical for me to do it in front of a big audience, because although it's very internal and somatic, it's kind of meant to be shown, like meant to be presented. The piece is kind of frontal, like it's normal stage setting, and we show our insight. So it's like intentional what is happening and what is provoking, and it felt good to have also a feedback of like, okay, people are seeing my transformation into a monster, and I'm not alone with this, and it's empowering to do this again, this thing of like, okay, we are vulnerable, we show our intimacy, but they have to look at us. So I mean, they can leave, but yeah.
I think it's also no, because like the work itself, the project itself, it's made to touch the audience also, because like we expose ourselves to the audience, and the audience either they find themselves to have feedback from it, or just like look and say like, okay, what the fuck is this? And I have a friend, she was like sitting in front of another man, and there is like a moment that I was like eating the t-shirt, and the light was like red, and I was like this eating so much, and I think he had phobia or something, and he was like trying to hold himself, and he was like trying to not puke. So there is like this intensity between us and the audience. There is like this connection, who's moving who.
No, yeah, but as Mila said, I feel like the piece and also the movement are made to be seen. Like everything is like there is a game of like, oh, what do you show, what you don't show, and with this kind of performance, what I like is that because we are so focused on the practice that it feels like it's first about what we do on the stage together, and then this awareness that, oh, actually, because we have this thing with hiding the face, for example, that there is you, us, but there is also the audience and the eyes, and then this game of like, what do I show? And this is also the funny part for me in it.
I'm happy that you were enjoying it so much. I don't. For me, I'm struggling with the time and the audience. To be honest, I feel that in the practice, the time is something much more relative, and then when you need to show something, it's a more how it you need to end up with an ending product, which we haven't done that a lot, but somehow you are doing it, and I'm still struggling with this as a performer, I will say. So I'm still in question, and yeah, I think it's
something that comes up now from a conversation last night with an audience member, and actually I didn't time the piece, but I think it was more than 1 hour yesterday. It was actually 20 minutes more, so you were kind of lost in the practice. It was supposed to be 60 minutes, it was 80, but then when I talked to an audience member, and they were like, it felt like it was 15 minutes. So it has this strange, it does something very strange with time, where it at the same time speeds it up and it slows it down. So you lose the sense of time, and I find this very, very fascinating. Okay, so we're going towards the end of this conversation and time slot. We have a few more minutes, and then you have to prepare because you are performing tonight again. And I would like to ask, but you don't have to answer this question, but it's like a final thing. Just what is it, something that you take out from this whole 1-year journey for yourself? It's something that I put out there, and if you already know you and feel like sharing, you can share, but also you can also ask me something if you feel like about this process and experience, or just say something to the choreographer or the theater or the audience. Yeah, so final intervention or question or statement.
I take relationships.
I take also relationships and trust, because if we didn't trust Milo in the beginning, because it was hard, I think, to trust him, then this wouldn't have existed. So yes.
This is the usual temporality of the rehearsals.
We speak from inside.
I also take relationships and the curiosity in your own performativity. And I want to ask Milo.
You don't see Milo, but he's
He's an audience member
in a
today.
somatic state.
Do we understand the work? No answer.
I think for me, I take everything because I feel that the moment I start working with you, I'm not the same person now. So I think there is no one word can describe what I can take. Philosophy. And I have one question for you, Yasen.
Go ahead.
How is the work with us? Did you enjoy it?
For me, to answer what I take is a bit the responsibility actually to accompany this process and to see this growth. And the work was challenge for me as well. So I did enjoy it, and I was in this, as the dramaturgs often are, in this position of being in and out. But was a fascinating thing to observe how you go through it and how you change. And yeah, I'm very grateful to be part of this. And I feel also that's something also in relation to the work with Milo now, very close to the type of practice that you have developed together. So it's also aesthetically, not only on a personal level, as friends and as colleagues, but really on what you propose. I think it is important. Voila, I think, yeah, 5 o'clock sharp, the performers will have to go prepare, but thank you so much for being here and bearing with us for this 1 hour, and for everyone who was listening or will listen the recording of this conversation. And yeah, Commonstro is tonight in a few hours at Kai Studios at 20:30. Thank you, and thank you to ENTWINED and to Kai, and thank you to Milo for giving us the floor to talk about the work.
Thank you.